Oops. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, good. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Yu Ying, and I'm the part of the event team from SCWIST. And welcome to, I would like to welcome everyone for today's From Brown Back series. And the title of today's event is Science-Based Strength Training as the Ultimate of Ergonomics. And our speaker today is Silvia Hua, who is an experienced kinesiologist and personal trainer and nutrition coach. And today she will let us know as science and technology professionals how we could learn to participate or engage in the more in the exercise to get pain reduced and adjust our posture, and also getting stronger to perform better in our life, also at work. So before we start, I would like to provide land acknowledgement. So we would like to take a moment and reflect on our connection to the land and thank the traditional guardians of that land, which we add SCWIST, Vancouver live and work. And Vancouver is on the unceded, ancestral and traditional lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, Sishat, Squamish, and the indigenous people of Turtle Island. So we do have some housekeeping rules. So please note this event will be recorded. So if you don't want your image be appear in the videos, please turn off your mic camera. And we will also take oath that we will keep our mobile muted so that won't affect our session. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please leave in the chat box and I will monitor that and get back to them during the question and answer session. So the agenda of today is we will have 10 minutes for the, around 10 minutes for the SCWIST introduction. And Silvia will give us around 13 minutes presentation. And we will have 10 to 15 minutes for questions. And at the end of this event, we will also provide closing remarks. So with that, I would like to stop sharing my screen and give the floor to Silvia. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. So I'm going to give a little bit of chat, but I want to save a lot of time for the interactive part of this workshop as well. So if you haven't already, get yourself ready to do a little bit of movement. So what you might need to, like, if you can, get into comfortable clothing and such, and just set up your space while I talk. If you can't participate, you can only listen. That's totally fine too. So let me see if I can share my screen or figure this PowerPoint thing out. Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm really terrible at this PowerPoint thing. So give me 1 second. Okay, you know what? That's not a huge deal, I think. I'm going to share my PowerPoint thing. I'm sorry that I don't know how to figure out how to do this, the proper sharing thing on PowerPoint, because it's probably gonna switch to the wrong screen, I think.
It will be okay. You can use that presenter mode. Yeah, you can click that presenter mode just like Eugene did, and it will be all good.
Oh, where do I find presenter mode?
Could you please share your screen so that I can see your PowerPoint? Then I can let you know. Eugene, can you please also guide her?
So I press share screen, and then I'm gonna
now we can see your slide.
Okay, so you probably just see the
slide.
editing mode, I'm guessing. Okay, that's okay. It's not a huge deal. I don't have
in your lower hand side where there is written notes. See, next to notes is the display settings and this button. Yeah, just click this one and all will be good.
And now, are you seeing still the same thing, or is it the actual?
The same thing.
It's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I need to share a different screen. So give me 1 second. I'm really sorry about this. Slideshow. I think there's somewhere on the settings on PowerPoint that I'm supposed to change, but
I try to use the presenter view. Is that?
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Share screen. I'm going to share screen number 1. Okay. So now I think you can see, is that right? Okay.
That's good.
Thanks for bearing with me, guys. So I just wanted to put up my info while I chat. So thank you for coming. So my name is Silvia. I would love for you guys to connect with me either on LinkedIn or Facebook or on Instagram. My info is there. I've also got my email address there. You can contact me because I'm going to whiz through today's stuff. And you guys might have questions. So I'm really happy to chat. My goal is to really promote smart strength training. That's what I've dedicated my career towards. And so I guess while I chat a little bit about myself, I would love for you guys to put in the chat box, what aches or issues do you have? So sometimes people have neck issues or whatever, just enter in the chat box if there's anything that's kind of bothering you. We'll see if I can maybe touch upon that a little bit today. And about me, I've got my Master of Science in Kinesiology from McGill. I did my bachelor's in human kinetics at UBC, and I'm a kinesiologist certified with the BC Association of Kinesiologists. For a few years, I worked in a physiotherapy clinic where I helped injured workers return to work after injury. From that job, I realized a lot of the injuries that I saw could have been prevented if people moved better, if they were stronger to begin with. And that's why I decided to switch to a slightly different job to help people become more proactive with their health. And that is as a personal trainer. So I worked for a couple of years doing full-time personal training at this place called Equinox, which is a fitness club downtown. And I kind of was different from the rest of the personal trainers. I'm, nerdy. I spent a ton of time on my computer, like doing administrative work and planning things for clients and really thinking about clients' goals and their needs and such. So it was a bit, unusual amongst my coworkers at Equinox. And after the pandemic started, I actually switched to online personal training. So now online personal training allowed me to make better use of my strengths of, planning and thinking and being really targeted with my interactions with my clients. And, but what happened is, at my old job, I had this reputation of being the nerdy personal trainer who spent tons of time on my computer. But because of that reputation, one of my old coworkers, he left that company to work for a tech startup. So he now works for a tech startup. We're developing a fitness app, and he wanted me to join his team. So that's actually what I'm doing, spending a lot of my time doing now. So I'm consulting in this tech startup about kinesiology and exercise and things related to health. So that reputation served me well, even though it was kind of, not the best as being a full-time in-person personal trainer. So that's a little bit about me. Today, we're going to talk about why strength training is important, even for desk workers. We're going to talk about what to prioritize in your exercise routine. And we're going to talk about practical strategies and how to actually include strength training in your life, because a lot of people, even though they know it's important to exercise, they don't necessarily, it's hard for people to do because you guys have so many other things going on. And at the end, I'm actually even going to talk about the one exercise I recommend if I had to pick just one, because sometimes just getting started is way better than not doing anything at all. And I would love for you guys to take notes because I'm not going to be using a ton of PowerPoint during this presentation. So I'm going to read through the responses that you guys wrote in terms of body aches and pains. So shoulder, neck, lower back, yeah, super common. Stiff neck, sore shoulders, tight quads and glutes. Yep. Okay, good. So, and wrist pain with lots of mouse clicking. So some of the things we will sort of address with our exercises today. So that's awesome. So if you guys want to chat, type in the chat box, or you can unmute and chat as well. I would love for you guys to participate. So why is it that strength training is important? So I've got a few ideas. I want to know what you guys think as well. So one of the things, addressing some of the things that you guys wrote with the neck and lower back and shoulder issues, those are all super common. And if we actually do the right exercises, not just like yoga and stretches, but we actually do strength training, the right exercise can actually help you counteract these negative effects that people experience. So the neck and the shoulder and the back. If we train the postural muscles, so upper back, we train some of the muscles that help to stabilize the shoulder. If we train our muscles to help hold ourselves in good position, that'll actually prevent some of the aches and pains that we feel. Because sometimes if we spend a ton of time at the desk, whether we're sitting or standing, it tends to put us in this not really ideal posture where our shoulders are rounded, our head tends to be forward. And that, because things are no longer, your bones and your body are no longer stacked in an efficient manner, you're now feeling certain muscles will tighten up, certain muscles will get weak. And okay, yeah, so if anybody have any other thoughts on why strength training is important? So we talked about how it can counteract some of the negative effects of sitting in poor posture and even some repetitive movements. If people with wrist pain, sometimes if you actually do develop really severe wrist or carpal tunnel or elbow issues, part of the rehab process, as you guys know, is, or if you've been through it, is actually doing resistance training exercises to help strengthen some of the muscles as well. And being fitter, of course, allows you to use your body to its full capacity while minimizing injury. So if you think about, let's say we wanted to build a bridge, and we knew that this bridge needed to handle 10 tons of vehicle weight. I actually don't know what normal is for a bridge, but let's say the goal is to handle 10 tons of vehicle traffic at any given time. Would you want the bridge's tolerance or the bridge's capacity to be exactly 10 tons? Well, that wouldn't really feel like a very safe bridge to be on. Ideally, you want that bridge to have more capacity than it needs to handle. So same thing with your body. If you keep your body strong enough to handle the things you need to do, whether that's sports or just day-to-day activities, lifting your child or whatever, then it's less likely for you to get hurt doing these things. Of course, with time or with age, after we are, in our mid-20s beyond, our body actually starts to lose muscle and it starts to lose bone mass as well. So strength training is what you need to maintain and possibly gain muscle and bone mass over time. Otherwise, we run into issues associated with having very low muscle mass and bone mass, such as osteoporosis or sarcopenia. And if your goal is to lose fat, it is very important for you to do resistance training as well. People think, cardio is the most important thing for fat loss, but actually, if you don't do resistance training to train the muscles, your body's going to lose muscle mass as well. So strength training is the way to go, or resistance training is the way to go. And when I say resistance training, it's an umbrella term. It includes lifting weights. It includes body weight exercises as well. Anything that basically challenges the muscles. And walking, running, they are great. I know, people love running and walking and they're really good, but they actually don't do much to strengthen the legs at all. So you need other exercises to do that. And yeah, that's why strength training is important. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. And I'm happy to address that as well. So now we're going to talk about what we should prioritize in the exercise routine. So let me go ahead and share my screen again with the PowerPoint. Okay, so when it comes to resistance training, there's a ton of exercises out there. So how do you know what exercise to pick in your program and not just, do a bunch of random things? I like to simplify it down to 5 movement patterns that you should really focus on. And so when you're doing resistance training program, ideally you want to include at least one exercise from each of these movement patterns. So the first one is called the hinge. And that is basically something like a deadlift or glute bridges or hip thrusts. So hinge movements, they train the butt and the back of the legs. So if you think about picking things up off the floor, that is a hinging movement. We are actually going to go through examples of each of these movements as well. The second one is a pulling movement. So this would be for the upper body. So if you guys have ever done rowing movements or lat pull downs or pull-ups, those are all pulling movements. Those are movements where you're pulling something towards you, or in some cases you're pulling your body towards something. Next is the squat. So any, squatting as an exercise, or even getting up and down off your toilet, or doing a leg press if you're in a gym. Next will be the lunge. So yeah, good movement. Lunges, there's various types of lunges. There's split squats, there's forward lunges, there's walking lunges, reverse lunges, or any sort of single exercise where you're standing either on one leg or your legs are in a split stance. That would be a lunge pattern movement. And the last one would be pushing movements. So push-ups are an example, bench pressing. And during the pandemic, when people were not sure what to do because they no longer could go to the gym, push-ups are really popular. And we want actually a good balance of different movement patterns, because if we do too much of one movement pattern, it can actually lead to muscle imbalances, which can lead to some problems. So for example, if you do a ton of pushing movements, like a lot of people did during the start of the quarantine last year, where you're doing lots of push-ups, you're doing lots of pushing, so you're really developing a lot of the muscles on the front of the body. So the front of the shoulders, your chest, your tricep area muscles. And if you think about what we tend to be throughout our desk jobs, we tend to be in this rounded position already, where these muscles tend to get in a short position. They're not really stretched out. And if you're doing a ton of pushing movements all the time, it can cause, and then you're not balancing out with the opposite movements. So pushing and pulling, they train opposite muscles, they're opposite movement patterns. You train a ton of pushing and you don't balance that out with the opposite muscles, it can actually potentially pull you into more of this non-ideal posture, and that can actually cause some problems as well. So some of you guys mentioned some shoulder pain. So when our shoulders are in this rounded position, or our neck is in a forward position, it can actually cause some shoulder problems, because you guys can give it a try in your chairs. In fact, I'm going to put this on gallery view now. So if you guys want to put yourself on video, that would be really helpful for the next part of the thing, where we're going to be after doing movements. It'll give me a chance to actually watch you guys do the movement and give you some feedback so that you can do the movements correctly. But you can give this a try. Round your shoulders like so, push your neck forward. See how much you can actually lift your arms up. Yeah, so like for me, it's like, only up to here if I have this rounded shoulder and forward head. But then you're going to actually sit or stand nice and tall, bring your shoulders back. You want your neck, your ear to be over your shoulder. And now you're going to do that same movement where you try to reach overhead, and see what the difference is. So you can see when I have that good alignment of the head and the shoulders, I can actually reach all the way overhead. Whereas when I round my shoulders, I'm not able to do so at all. So sometimes shoulder issues can be related to your posture. In fact, they often are, and shoulder issues actually are fairly common these days, unfortunately. So those are the 5 movement patterns. There are, of course, other movement patterns that are that you can include in your exercise program, but if you are trying to be minimalist, those are the 5. And you'll notice in all these 5 movement patterns I talked about, they are what we call compound movements. So compound movements are movements that involve moving 2 joints. So when you're pulling, you're moving at the shoulder and elbow. Same thing with pushing. When you're squatting, you are moving at your hips and your knee joints. And if you don't have a ton of time, compound movements are the way to go, because you're actually going to be using more muscles at once. In contrary, non-compound movements or simple movements, these are movements where you're moving just that one joint. So the example would be bicep curl. Bicep curls are not bad, but you're only moving at one joint, so you're using fewer muscles. And if you're trying to be efficient with your time, that's not the best way to go. But there are reasons to put in bicep curls sometimes if you're trying to really grow your biceps. That's important. And I already alluded to this. If you're going to prioritize movements in our modern lifestyle, it's going to be more important for you to do pulling versus pushing. So push-ups, they're a pushing movement. They are good, but pulling movements would be things like rows. We're going to go through an example of how we can do a pulling movement later, but if you had to prioritize one, in fact, some people propose you should actually do more pulling movements than pushing movements. So pull-ups, rows, lat pull downs. That's because the pulling movements generally train what we consider to be some of our postural muscles. So our postural muscles are the muscles of our upper back area. So if we want to be specific, your middle and lower trapezius are some of the common ones. And that's because these are the muscles that actually hold your shoulders in that good position. So if you even just like sit or stand and pull your shoulders back, you'll feel a little bit of those upper back muscles engage. And of course, glutes. Glutes are a really important muscle group to train, not just for aesthetics, because these days it's popular, especially amongst women, to have well-developed glute muscles. But with our modern lifestyle where we spend a ton of time sitting, we're compressing the glutes and we're not using the glute muscles. And that can cause those glute muscles to be a little bit weaker, which means it's not just a problem for, potentially having a flat butt, but when your glutes are weak, it can actually lead to some other issues. So a couple of you guys mentioned low back being an issue. Typically, when you have low back issues, tends to be paired with glute muscles that aren't very well developed. So glutes are muscles in your butt, and knee issues as well. So the glute muscles, everything in the body is connected. So if there is a problem with one part of your body, it can actually cause pain in another part of the body. So thinking of examples that you guys may have been through, if you're working on a team and then some people are slacking off and they're not doing their job, then other people on the team need to pick up the slack, right? So that's actually kind of the same thing in your body. So if your glutes are not working well, it'll just cause your knee to not be really well aligned, and that can cause excess stress on your knees, which can lead to some pain later on. Yeah, so in terms of things to prioritize, you want to prioritize the 5 main movements that I'm going to go through again later on. We want to prioritize more pushing versus pulling. And third, we want to make sure we train those glutes so that we don't have sleepy glutes.
Okay. Parcel system.
Pardon me?
It has been painful, but we are making some progress. And I had fun translating some of the lingo things in Spanish. And I realized how difficult it is to get to just send a spreadsheet someone to translate, because there is no context there. There are many words that they have 5 different meanings in translations in Spanish, and because I designed the UI, I knew what you're supposed to say. But yeah, I think I'm not sure how the hard time is Madeline is maybe having translated thing into French without having that context.
Sorry, Liz, was that a question for me, or
just she accidentally unmuted herself?
Yeah, Liz.
Yeah, I think it should be. It should be a list with the screen we are translating.
Okay, Liz, I'm not sure if you meant to ask a question, but I just muted you in case. So if you do have a question, you can clarify. You maybe type it in the chat box and we can address it. Okay, so yeah, and then of course some people might wonder, okay, how about training the core? Training the core is important for back. Yes, the core can be important. I would say if your time is very limited, I would treat core work as more like a supplement, unless you have back pain. If you're recovering from a back injury or you have specific back pain, definitely see somebody to make sure you're getting the right core exercises. But or if you really enjoy them and you have a ton of time to exercise, do the core exercises. Otherwise, the downside with doing a ton of ab exercises is you're not actually using as much muscle as you would be doing the other exercises, because core exercises are training, these muscles typically, but then, this is a relatively small group of muscles compared to training the rest of the muscles in your body. If you spend more time on ab exercise, it's taking away your time to do other exercises that are potentially going to give you more bang for the buck, such as the 5 main movement patterns that I talked about earlier. Okay, we're going to now move on to the hands-on practice. So I would really if you feel comfortable, really recommend that you do actually turn on your camera and participate to get the most out of this movement, because I've trained many clients over the years as a kinesiologist and a personal trainer, and people, they think that they're doing something right, but there's actually many things that they could do better to really get the most out of the exercise. And if you don't get, you're doing an exercise and you're not getting the most out of it, it's not the best use of your time. It's not just a safety thing. So also listen to your body while you're doing these movements. If there's anything that's painful or you're not, not comfortable doing, don't do it. This is all optional. I selected exercises that should be somewhat easy to coach in a group for beginners with no equipment. So we're going to start with the first one. So the first exercise is really just about teaching you how to control the spine. So I don't see anyone with their camera on yet. So this is, your chance. It's up to you. But you are really going to get more of this workshop if you do participate. So the first exercise it's called a pelvic tilt. So you can do this while either standing or stand up if you can. That would be the best thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move my hips. So I'm going to have a slight bend in my knees. And I'm going to just think about pointing my belly button to the floor and then pointing it to my nose. So if you can see that my hips are tilting up and down, my shoulders and head stay in the same spot. So you can give that a shot and then see what you notice as you do this movement. So if you're doing this properly, it'll just be the hips that are moving mostly. It's the hips and the spine, because the hips and spine are connected. And the reason why I'm starting with this is because it's that concept of neutral spine is an important concept when we're doing other exercises. So neutral spine means the spine is in its ideal, its natural neutral position, like so. If it's not a neutral spine, it means I might be either rounded like so, where the spine is flexed, or I might be hyperextended. So hyperextended and flexed or rounded spine, those are the non-neutral positions, and we want to learn how to keep that neutral position. When your spine is in the neutral position, that is when your body is able to express its full strength, because your body feels safe. When your spine is in these really extreme positions, the body knows that it's not really, the spine is not really in a safe position, which means your body, your brain, your nervous system won't allow you to actually generate as much strength, because there's a higher chance of injuring the spine. And of course, injuring the spine and the spinal cord is no good. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to do a few repetitions of this. And if you have any comments about that, let me know, because this is one of the key things that everybody should be able to master if you want to do some other exercise. Even something like the plank, that position is, knowing how to control the spine is important. So if you don't have space, that's no problem. So that's the pelvic tilt. And then next I'm going to go on to the deadlift. So the deadlift is a hinge pattern that's really good for training the glutes and the back of the leg. So it's also why I wanted to go over that, learning how to control the spine, because often people will say, you got to lift with your legs and you shouldn't lift with your back. But in reality, the hinge movement, so learning to do something like so, this is a hinge movement. It's actually a really important movement to be able to do. And even though I am my torso is in a more horizontal position, it can be perfectly safe as long as I know how to do it properly, and as long as I pick a weight that is appropriate for my ability. So with the hinge, what you're going to do is you're going to grab, if you have a chair, grab your chair. I'm going to do that as well. And I'm going to just use the chair as a cue for me. So I'm going to stand right in front of the chair. Or it doesn't have to be a chair, but something like a coffee table could work too. And I'm basically going to stand in front of the chair. I'm going to push my butt back as far as I can, and then bring my head down at the same time. So it's kind of like a bowing down. The reason why I put the chair there is I'm trying to actually not let my knees move forward. And what this does, it helps me to, I'll feel my hamstrings working, I'll feel my glutes working. And the reason why I went over that that pelvic tilt earlier is because sometimes people, when they do this movement, they're starting to feel a ton of pressure in their back. So learning how to actually maintain that neutral spine will help you from feeling a ton of pressure in your back. So if you are doing this movement, or if you're in the gym doing a deadlift or something like that, or you're picking something up and you start to feel a ton of pressure in your low back, it is very likely that you're actually arching the back a lot as you stand up, which means you're actually using your back more than you need to be. And it means you're not really engaging your core and your glutes very well. So the reason why I don't prioritize doing core movements, you know, if you're time limited, is because if you're doing the other movements correctly, you're actually already engaging the core. So with this hip hinge, you're pushing the butt back, bringing the head down. So this is the basic movement. Notice that my spine, it actually stays very rigid throughout. So what I don't want to do when I'm doing the hinge movement is actually bending the spine like so, where I'm rounding the spine. And of course, I don't want to do the opposite where I'm arching the back as well. So see, when I arch my back, I actually feel a ton of pressure in the low back, which is not really a great thing if you're doing it with a ton of weight, especially, or you're doing it very repetitively. So learn how to keep the spine nice and neutral, pushing the butt back. And you'll notice that this movement, it is kind of like a squat, but it's not quite the same as a squat as well. So if I were to put a stick on my back, the stick should stay in contact with my head, between the shoulder blades and the butt the whole time. Okay, so that's a good way to figure out if I'm keeping my spine nice and neutral. So that is a hinge. It is different from a squat in that with a squatting movement, you're actually bending the knees a lot more. So this is a squat where I'm actually allowing my knees to move forward and I'm bending my knees a lot more. This is the hinge. So slightly different, and you'll feel the muscles differently as well. So with the hinge, you'll feel the butt and the back of the legs working. With the squat, you're going to feel mostly the front of the thighs moving. Anybody have questions about that? Okay, so that's the hinge. I'm going to go on to the next one. It's called, we're going to go on to the pull. So we're going to do a row. So row is a particularly great one if you got, if you want to have good posture, you want to have really nice feeling shoulders and neck as well. So what you can do is you can use a chair, or if you have a bench, like a piano bench or something else, that could work too. I'm going to put, actually, before I do the row, I'm going to teach people to use, teach you guys how to get the most of the movement as well. Yes, with the hip hinge, once you learn how to do the movement properly, you can use weight. So thanks for reminding me. So you can either use a dumbbell for the hinge, so dumbbell. If you're at the gym, you can use, of course, you've got a lot more options for weights. Other options for at home is if you've got, like, I got this giant water jug that I filled with rice. So bag of rice or water jug like so could work. So I could do the hinge like so, just you know, finding somewhere to grip like so. With the hinge, it can also be done, you know, like so, where I just hold the weight in one arm. So just in my left arm in this case, and it's the same idea. I'm still doing the same movement pattern. So there's different ways to perform the hinge, but yeah, small child or a pet could also work. With the pull, before we do that, we're gonna actually learn how to use the shoulder blades. So you're going to have your arms straight in front of you, and you're going to basically reach your shoulder blades forward and then pull them back. Like so. So notice that I'm actually not bending my elbows at all. What I'm doing is allowing the shoulder blade to move forward and then pulling the shoulder blade back. Just like so. So shoulder blades are coming apart and then coming back together. This is what we call protraction, and this is retraction. So the movement of the shoulder blade, when you do that properly, it actually helps you to engage all the muscles of the shoulder blade, which are postural muscles as well. So this can be a tricky movement for some people, just because we tend to, with our desk work, we tend to be disconnected from our postural muscles a little bit. So now that we've learned how to move the shoulder blades, we can actually do the row properly. So the row exercise, there's many ways to do it. This is a way you can do it with a free weight at home. If you're at the gym, there are machines that allow you to do this as well. So I'm gonna put one knee and one hand on the chair. And that shoulder blade movement I was showing you guys before, it's gonna be actually incorporated into this movement. So notice that here I'm allowing my shoulder blade to go forward and then I'm pulling it back. So I'm gonna grab the weight. So at the beginning, the weight actually pulls my shoulder blade towards the floor. And then I just initiate the movement by pulling the shoulder blade back, and then I pull the weight back. And then I just reverse it, the movement. So notice shoulder blade initiates the movement, and then I pull the weight towards my hip by bending the elbow. And then I just reverse the movement. So I straighten my elbow and then let the weight pull my shoulder blade back down. So this is a row or a dumbbell row. You can, if you don't have any weights at home, a water jug or a milk jug, these 4-liter things can also work very well. You can also fill up a backpack and do it. And of course, I've got this, this handy water jug works pretty well for this particular exercise as well. So that's the row. If you are, if you do go to the gym and you have machines, you want to incorporate the technique where we actually let the shoulder blades move. You don't want to just pull with the arms and not get the shoulder blade move. So that's the pull, particularly important for posture. Next is the squat. I think I'm conscious of the time. So squatting, I'm sure most of you guys have done some sort of squatting before, but it is basically you just lower your body down. A tip for that is to play around with foot position. So you might need to, there's no reason why you need to, keep your feet super narrow and keep your feet pointing straight. Some people tend to be more comfortable if they actually widen their stance a little bit. So experiment with whatever will give you the best depth. So going as deep as you can with good form. And now let's go on to the split squat. So the split squat is a form of a lunge. It's just a lunge where you're stationary. So if you've never done the split squat before, well, I'll show you what the split squat looks like. So you're standing with your feet in a split position, like so, and then you lower down and come back up. So similar to a lunge, just your feet stay in the same spot. So in a front view, it's like so. And this is a great one you can do even while you're at work because you don't actually have to get down on the floor. And if you've never done the split squat, or if you're not sure how to position your feet, you can start at the bottom. So I'm starting in a kneeling position. Knees are bent 90 degrees. And then, my feet are aligned with my hips more or less. So they're not in one line, but they've got some width to it. And then from there, it's just a matter of standing up, lowering back down and repeating. So that is a split squat. If you guys have tried that, let me know if you've noticed anything about doing it. Okay, so I'm going to emphasize the difference between the squat and the hinge. So hinge, you're bending mostly at the hip joint, and then there's the torso moves down just a little bit more. So it's kind of like bowing. And then I'm feeling a little bit of a stretch on the back of my legs as I bow down. And then the squat is just like so. So I'm actually emphasizing more bending of the knee, and I'm keeping my torso a little bit more upright. So squat and then hinge. And these are actually, if you're not super familiar with them, it can be tricky movements. So takes practice. You can definitely message me later. I'm happy to help you through it as well. Because I've noticed that, the best way to actually help people is to have them do it and give them feedback and continue practicing. Okay, awesome. No problem, Sumo. Okay, so last one I will go through is going to be the push-up. So push-ups, they can be done on the floor. And of course, that's great. But if you cannot do any push-ups on the floor, what can you do instead? Because push-ups on the knees are okay, but you can keep doing push-up on the knee forever and never actually be able to do it on the floor. So how do you actually progress? How do you get from, A to B, and what are the steps in between if it's a big jump? So I'm gonna show, this is my kitchen table here. And instead of putting my hands on the floor, I'm just gonna put my hands on the table. You know, body is in a straight line, lower back down, come back up. So I'm just gonna lower until the table touches like right here at the bottom or at the top of the abdominals. And then come back up. Body stays straight. Angle, elbows are not super wide, they're not super narrow, they're kind of at a 45-degree angle. And as you get better at that, to get, you know, closer to a full push-up, you basically just place your hands on a lower surface. So as you get stronger, you can progress from maybe your kitchen counter to your kitchen table to maybe a coffee table, and then eventually to the floor. And then so if I were to put my hands on the chair instead where it's lower, it's going to feel much more challenging. So of course, whatever you put your hands on, make sure it's stable because you don't want to fall on your face. And those are the movements. So let me share my screen again. Yeah, so hopefully, oops. There we go. So you guys can see my PowerPoint thing. So we got the hinge, pull, squat, lunge, and push. You can make a note of it. And so now we'll talk about some, well, actually any questions about those 5 main movements, you can type them in the chat box. But next we'll talk about how do you actually incorporate strength training into your life, because exercise is, you know, finding the time to do it can be tough when you've got, you know, work and you got family and you want to have a life, you know, a social life. So what I would recommend is actually incorporate movement breaks into your day. So instead of thinking, oh my God, like I have to, you know, set aside an hour to do a full strength training workout, you can actually just pick one exercise, do a few repetitions of the exercise. It'll take you a minute, and then like go about doing the rest of your stuff. Maybe half an hour to an hour or whatever later, do either the same exercise or another exercise for a few repetitions. So you don't actually have to do it all once to get the benefit. So of course, you know, with most things, things are not black and white. So whenever you decide you want to exercise, it's not like you have to do it a certain way. Otherwise, there's no point because you're not going to get any benefit. Like it's very much just like in medicine, there's a dose dependent response. So doing a little bit will give you a little bit of benefit. If you do more, you'll get more benefit. So even just doing these movement snacks throughout the day, like every hour, doing like a minute of a strength training, that's going to give you some benefit. And of course, with anything, if you actually plan when you're going to be able to do it, creating a plan instead of just thinking, oh, I'm going to exercise and not actually specify exactly when, creating a plan is going to help you be more likely to do it. So in, you know, behavior change or in psychology, they call it an implementation intention. So an example can be like, you know, when it is lunchtime, I'm going to do 10 squats. That, you know, that's very specific as to what planning when I'm going to do it. Start gradually as well with exercise. You don't want to do like a lot at once, too much too soon. You're going to be super sore and it's going to be very demotivating for you to try to do again. A little bit is better than nothing. Again, I mentioned balancing the muscle groups so that you got, you know, you don't want to do a ton of pushing with a ton of pulling, for example. But that being said, if you do more pulling than pushing, that's actually probably a good thing for our modern life, just to improve our posture. And doing lots of glute work is probably really good too. To make things more challenging, you can either increase how many repetitions you do. You can, you know, add more weight, of course. But the other thing you do if you don't have any equipment is you can challenge yourself by using more control. So what I mean is, for example, this is a regular squat at a regular speed, just going up and down. If I wanted to make my squat more challenging, I could take 4 seconds to 10 seconds to lower down. So it's very slow lowering and fast up, because of course, when I'm going down, gravity is helping me. So I can go against gravity a little bit by slowing down that lowering portion. And if you want to really challenge yourself, you can go like super, super slow and then come up really quickly. So that's how you can challenge yourself. Even if you don't have more weight, you can also add a hold. So the example, the split squat, I could lower myself down and then hold for like 5 seconds and then come back up. And that's going to be way more challenging. Of course, if you can, you guys are all probably high achievers. I found that it was really hard for me to stick to regular strength training when I was just doing some of the standard movements, because even though I knew in my head that it was super good, it was still tough for me to do. So what I found really helpful was actually finding activities that gave me that sense of mastery and achievement. So for me, it's doing a sport called Olympic weightlifting. Olympic weightlifting is it's a very technical sport. Basically, you're taking the weight from the floor and then you're throwing it overhead. So there's a combination of strength and a lot of technique involved. If you ever watch the Olympics in the summer, it's an Olympic sport as well. I'm also currently practicing handstands. Both require strength, so it is a form of strength training, but it's also a lot more technical, and it gives me that sense of achievement. So whatever it is for you, could be something that gives you that sense of achievement. Sometimes just aiming to get stronger is super, super motivating. Otherwise, some other activities that might give you that sense of fun and achievement are things like gymnastics or rock climbing or sports. And then usually strength training will really support those activities as well. And the other thing is thinking about how strength training can align with your identity. So for me, strength training is part of my identity because my purpose is to help people do smart exercise and get healthier. So I need to practice what I preach. So in a way, it's kind of easy for me. For you guys, if you don't work in health and fitness directly, you can think about what is important for you and who you are. So for some people, it might mean you're an independent person. You want to maintain your independence throughout your lifespan, and maintaining your strength is going to help with that, because we know being stronger helps you, continue walking and avoiding falls and just have more capacity to do physical things. If you're a parent, it might be, I'm a parent and I need to be able to pick up my kids. That might be what's motivating for you. Or if you're a grandparent, it's maybe playing with your kids and being able to pick up your grandkids and keep up with your grandkids, if that's part of your identity. If you're just simply a high achiever, simply the act of pursuing the ability to do physical feats might be what's motivating for you. If you enjoy hiking, it might be knowing that doing things like lunges will help with your hiking. And yeah, and I guess one thing I will offer to you guys to thank you guys for participating, and you can definitely share this with your friends as well, is I went through a lot of things, and of course it's going through it in a very short presentation is going to be super hard to try to remember it all potentially. So I'm going to share with you a resource. So can you guys see my PowerPoint? So it's just mentioning my website. So if you go to my website, defytimefitness.com, there's a link at the front that says 30-second workouts for desk workers. If you click that, you sign up, just enter your email, and I will send you my strength training as the ultimate office ergonomics guide. So in that PDF document, you'll be able to see, I talk about the main movement patterns, and I also go through examples of exercises you can do, at home with no equipment, to do, a nice balanced full body routine. And it's not about killing yourself to get the benefits. It's about actually working smarter, not necessarily harder. And that's that. So defytimefitness.com. Now I guess we've got a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Silvia, for a very brief, very comprehensive introduction about the strength training. And we do have some questions in the chat. So Mina asked, what exercise do you recommend for strength waist? Because people also ask her about they have wrist pain.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because wrist pain can be somewhat, can be a couple of different causes for it, and I can't diagnose you. If you haven't already, maybe if your workplace if there's if there's somebody who can do an ergonomic assessment to see, because sometimes it's not about just strength training. Sometimes you have to actually address the root cause of the issue. So if your problem is your desk setup is really terrible, you got to fix that. Or if the problem is that you're spending 5 hours at a time with no breaks at your computer, you got to just take some rest breaks. So sometimes the solution is not just exercise. Otherwise, I mean, just the act of holding weights like dumbbells, it's going to strengthen some of the muscles of the wrist. Just weight training, and also when you're doing things like push-ups and planks, you are strengthening wrists as well. But depending on your situation, some of those movements may be irritating. So it's really hard for me to give you an answer because it is, I don't have enough details. But if it is serious enough, do see a physiotherapist or somebody else who can maybe actually address the issue. So I would probably go first with seeing if you can get your address the root cause by adjusting, you know, taking more frequent breaks and maybe making sure your desk is set up more ergonomically, and maybe your, I don't know, maybe your keyboard is not set up really well or something. And it's just causing, if your wrists are like this all the time while you're typing, that's going to be really irritating. Yeah, and then if those are addressed, then I would, or if the issue is severe enough, I would see a physiotherapist. Often physiotherapy is covered if you have extended health insurance. But definitely you can get in touch later by email or through social media. We can chat more about it one-to-one later, Mina. Next, Megan, thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Megan, for the feedback. Okay, Sumo, I feel a squat in particular can be done badly. Can you go over safety tips for safe squats? I can't go down far at all personally. Okay. Yeah, so you know what? When I was at a personal trainer in person at the gym, squats were the exercise that I saw done wrong most of the time, or not wrong, but like not ideal. So in terms of the knees not going forward, the knees do need to go forward. If I did not let my knees go forward, it would not be a squat, because if my knees didn't go forward, then I would either fall backwards or I would be doing a hinge. That's the only way I can lower myself down without letting my knees go forward. So when I squat, the knees do go forward, because that's just physics. You guys probably understand physics, where center of mass needs to be over the base of support. If the center of mass is not over the base of support, you're gonna fall. So that is a really still somewhat of a debated topic. Your knees have to go forward, but there can be other issues that make it hard for you to squat. I did talk about adjusting your stand, so that might be what you need to. So try going wider, but there also might be other issues that make it hard for you to go down lower. So often, if you take a weight and you hold it in front, it's going to help you because of physics. So just having a weight in front, either by your chest, or even if it's a lightweight, you can reach it forward. That's probably going to help you get lower because of helping you balance and helping you keep that center of mass over the base of support. In terms of other safety things, I went over the pelvic tilt before, and I talked about how you want to maintain a stiff spine. So when you're squatting, you want to maintain a stiff spine as well. So a common thing that'll happen with squats is the people will arch their back like so, back is super arch, and then at the bottom, the tailbone tucks down. So it's like movement of the spine is happening. It could be subtly or it could be very obvious. I'm making it very obvious and to make it well, so you guys can see. But that's a very common thing. So you want to avoid when you have weight, you want to minimize movement of the spine, because that means you're not keeping your spine stable, which over time can cause some problems in some people because of the way it squishes the discs asymmetrically. So it can cause disc issues potentially. If you're just doing body weight, not as likely for there to be an issue with injury risk. It's all about repetitions times load. So the more repetitions you do, the higher your risk is, and then the more load you use, there's more risk. I don't want to say for sure you're going to injure your back just because your form's not perfect, because that's not true either. But you have to, if you want to minimize risk, about keeping the spine safe, and also with knee health, you just want to make sure your knees stay in line with your toes. So if your feet are pointing out slightly, you want to make sure your knees point out as you squat down. What you don't want to happen is knees point to the side and then, feet point to the side and then knees point forward, like so. So if the knees don't track, if they don't go in line with the feet, that can cause just excess stress to the knees. So again, what you guys can do is when you guys go to my website, there is a contact thing on there. We can totally book a call, a video call. We can go over it one-on-one and see exactly what your issues are. And I'm happy to help.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, think that's it. So thank you, Silvia, for giving us a great presentation for all those strength training and also those movement. Really, I think that's really helpful, and everyone will get something from your presentation. And if anyone have any question, maybe you can contact Silvia for futures. So before you go, I would like to share my screen again and announce our next event. So I would like to introduce you our next week event is the Ask Me Anything about the Maya Bio Innovations. So this will be very helpful for those who are looking for jobs and also looking for internship opportunity in the biotechnology and the pharmaceutical industry. So if you are interested in that, or you know anyone of your friends are looking for transit into the life science industry, please feel free to join us on November 12th at noontime Pacific Standard Time, and hope you to see all of you on this Friday. And with that, I would like to thank you again and for attending today's event, and hope everyone have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Silvia. Thanks, Eugene, for moderating this session. And with that note, I would like to say good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Have a wonderful day and take care. And bye. We will close the session now. Thank you.
Thank you.